JP, always good to see you. Hope the family is doing well. Let's start with Ryan Zimmerman here. 15-year career with the Washington Nationals, coming off a World Series championship. And because of the way the season is laying out, he's still trying to make a determination whether he's going to play. I mean, what can you tell us about Ryan's situation?
He is, Fran, and good evening. Ryan Zimmerman actually writing a diary for the Associated Press, and he began today's entry simply by saying, "I still don't know if I'm going to play." He went on to explain that he has a 3-month-old baby at home. His mother has multiple sclerosis. He's concerned about, obviously, her being in a high-risk category, and effectively saying that if he plays, he realizes he probably cannot see his mother until a few weeks after the season is over. And you see there footage of the World Series. Of course, he had a home run in Game 1 of the World Series last year, helping the Nationals win their very first World Series in franchise history. You see what he's done as a Nationals player. He turns 35 years old here coming up this year. So Ryan Zimmerman has achieved so much in the game, Fran, and I think one of the key things that he said in that essay is it's up to everyone individually. There is no right or wrong answer in the midst of these circumstances. It's really up to every individual player. So certainly Ryan has done so much in the game, and I know he's got a lot of support around the sport behind him. And I think this is just one glimpse, Fran, at the look around the league at so many players making similar decisions right now in the coming days.
Let me throw this at you here. So if he opts to not play, does he still get paid?
So, very interesting question. So, from a standpoint of the overall MLB policy, if you yourself are a high-risk individual and you have the waiver to not play, you would still get paid. But if that's not the case, it would therefore be up to the club itself to make that determination. So, one assumes, given the relationship there between Zimmerman and the Nationals, very strong, that could play a role there. But certainly, once it's now down to a family decision as opposed to the player himself, that would then be dealt with on a club-by-club basis.
Yeah, a lot of questions that are going to be different this year as opposed to in years past. All right, so let's move on to the Yankees. Aaron Judge was battling some injuries during spring training, and then we had the shutdown. Where does Judge stand with his injury? Will he be ready to go day one?
It's an excellent question, Fran. We're not clear on that yet. I think that's the key thing, is the Yankees have not said definitively if he will be ready or not. Although I did have a source close to Judge today telling me things have been good. So good news, generally speaking, on Judge. Of course, he had that the rib fracture during spring training. Brian Hoke, MLB.com's reporter covering the Yankees, Brian's reporting has basically Aaron Hicks and Aaron Judge as being somewhat questionable for the month of July as we get towards later July and being ready to play in games, although James Paxton and Giancarlo Stanton both expected to be ready. You see there what Judge has gone through. Of course, he did come back and play in all 6 games of the ALCS last season, but again, a number of injuries, including that oblique and rib issue in spring training. So again, I would repeat, a source told me today, Fran, generally speaking, optimistic, but there has not been a firm update from the Yankees on this.
All right, and meanwhile, let's stay on the injury front and deal with the Houston Astros. Give me an update on a couple of starters here. Lance McCullers, who will be coming back from Tommy John surgery, and then Justin Verlander, who had a minor injury in spring training as well.
Yes, Fran, the Astros, from the standpoint of their pitching, certainly benefiting from the shorter season in both of these regards. First, with Verlander. Of course, he had the surgery in spring training on the groin issue. I was told by the Astros GM, James Click, earlier today that Verlander has been throwing. Signs are very good. All indications are Verlander should be ready to go for the start of the regular season about a month from now. So very good news there for someone who, Fran, in the case of Verlander, has thrown the most innings of anyone in baseball since 2010. Now, Lance McCullers Jr., you see his name there, he, of course, will go almost 2 full calendar years since his last meaningful pitch in the 2018 ALCS against the Red Sox. Of course, he missed all of last year with Tommy John surgery. And if you were to envision, Fran, a normal 162, he might have been limited in terms of workload with innings, but that is not expected to be the case in a 60-game season. So McCullers ready to go, no limitations there. You see Greinke's name on that list. Even minus Garrett Cole, should still be a very good rotation, especially if Urquidy continues the growth we saw from him last year in the postseason.
All right, so 29 of the 30 Major League Baseball teams reside in the United States. The Blue Jays play in Canada. So where are they going to play their home games this season? Because they have different restrictions than we do here in the United States.
Thank you, Fran, for the international question, by the way. I always appreciate those. The Canadian team there, of course, the Toronto Blue Jays, they've actually applied jointly with MLB for a waiver to the Canadian government to have some relaxation of what has been a mandatory 14-day quarantine for all people entering Canada. So, of course, that becomes a little bit problematic when series are not going to last 14 days, how that would go. So right now, the Blue Jays and Mark Shapiro, their CEO, had a lengthy conference call with Toronto-based media today about this exact situation. 3 scenarios right now on the table for the Blue Jays, according to Keegan Matheson, our reporter for MLB.com. First would be the full Toronto experience, where they would be there fully if the Canadian government allows that waiver. The other would be fully in Dunedin, Florida. And the third option would be a combination of the two, Toronto and Dunedin, of course, where the Blue Jays have spring training. But as we know, Florida having an uptick in cases with COVID-19 here in recent days. So all 3 of those scenarios are still in play. Buffalo has been mentioned. That's probably a lesser option for Toronto at the present time. So the hope is that perhaps that waiver would be granted. We would see the Blue Jays playing in Toronto here in the weeks to come. But as so many things are going right now, Fran, this is very much a day-to-day situation for the Blue Jays and MLB on those logistics.
It's been a while, my man. Good to talk to you.
It has been. It was a pleasure, Fran. Thanks for having me on the show tonight. I appreciate it very much.